welcome back. Now, we all know that understanding the opposite sex can be just a little tricky.
That's right, especially when the roles and expectations are sometimes unclear. And joining us now to talk about what men and women want in a relationship is Michael Chambers, who is Mr. Atlanta University Center, and India Adams Gregory, who is Miss Clark Atlanta University. So thank both of you for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you know we have to hear the young adult perspective on relationships. So, Michael, I want to start with you. Do you think that there is a clear understanding of the role and expectations between men and women?
Well, Carlene, let me first start off by saying I love women. So any criticism I do have, believe me, it's all love. But based on my personal experience, I would say no. And in large part on the women's side of it, I think that so many expectations are implied instead of directly stated.
Okay.
I think in relationships it's important that we have constructive criticism and we're willing to step on each other's toes a little bit to get our point across and what we expect down the road, instead of always implying things and expecting that person to live up to expectations in which they don't even know you have for them.
So that unspoken list of expectations then is what you have a problem with?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, now India, what about your expectations? You're Miss Clark Atlanta University, obviously a very attractive young woman.
Oh, thank you.
When you're looking for a mate, what are you looking for?
I look for a number of things. To be honest with you, Ryan, I don't have a certain list of exactly what I'm looking for, but I know what I don't want,
okay,
if that makes sense to you. But just a couple of things that I look for is somebody who's educated, respectful. Honesty is a huge, 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 huge thing. And just somebody who can care about me and loves me and cares about me for who I am.
Okay, now what about those intangible things like being able to fix a flat tire or being able to fix things around the house? Is that important to you when you're looking for a boyfriend?
It could help, but that stuff can be learned down the line.
Okay.
So you don't necessarily have a problem then with a man who doesn't necessarily know how to do the quote-unquote manly things. Okay.
Not necessarily, because I'm a woman and at times I don't know how to do womanly things.
Well, that leads me to our next question for Mr. Chambers here. Do you think that women should come with certain prerequisite skills, i.e. cooking?
That would be nice. I mean, my biggest thing is if you can't do things like that, that you make up for it in other areas.
Okay.
Okay, it'd be nice for you to learn how to cook or know how to cook. I like to eat. You know, they say, you know, a key to a man's heart is through his stomach. So if you can't get to me that way, I strongly suggest you have another way of doing so.
Okay, well, let me ask you this question because, you know, we have a lot of young adults who are not necessarily the traditional housewife. They may not be your mother or your grandmother. They may not be your father or your grandfather. Do you think the state of relationships is really different than what it used to be for your parents? And if so, how do you feel about that?
Well, I'll say I think it's different in a sense. It was already said earlier by Spirit. I think that most people are so used to divorce. We've become accustomed to it. It's okay. I think back in the day it was easier to, or it was expected for people to stay in relationships longer, even if they were unhappy. I think that people felt compelled to honor the vows that they made in the marriage, where today it's so easy just to say, you know what, I'll pay the few $100s, let's just get divorced, because it's so much easier to go out and start over.
Right. I was going to say the exact same thing. Nowadays, people are just looking for that quick fix way to get over it, and they'll move on. But back in the day, you know, they had to stay in power. They were trying to make it work, get over the problem. So, yeah, I totally agree with that.
Okay.
Okay, well now another thing that they say causes a problem in relationships is when people aren't evenly yoked. How do you all feel about finances? Is that important to you? Like, for example, Mike, how would you feel if your wife or girlfriend made more money than you?
Oh, that's fine. That's I'm fine with that. I don't have an issue with that. I think it's an issue when we're arguing or we're getting into it and that's brought up as leverage. I think that shouldn't be used as leverage, because if you're making more money than me, as a man, I'm hoping that I'm coming with something else, bringing it to the table besides money. You know, I don't think money is the most important thing in a relationship. However, I think that to some extent you should be equally yoked. I don't think there's anything wrong with a little competition in a relationship.
Okay.
If you're a woman and you're making a little bit more money than me, that's just going to make me want to step my game up just a little bit more so that I can stay up to where you're at. I don't have to make as much money, but I want to be the best I can be, and being with you hopefully will make me want to do that.
Now, India, you know, for sometimes women, though, the flip side is that a lot of women are dubbed gold diggers if they want a man who has at least women will say, well, I want him to have at least what I have. So if I have a house, a car, and a good job, then he at least needs to be coming with those things.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
My thing is, everything that I wanted in a man, I've had it myself.
Okay.
At times, I've dated. Why are you looking at me like that?
You're a lucky woman.
Thank you. At times, I've even dated men. I have a car that didn't have a car, that may not have had their own living situation. They may have had to live with somebody else. But going back to the question before, they knew how to treat me, and I appreciated how they treated me. And I felt like those things would come along eventually. So it didn't really matter too much to me.
Okay, well, now you mentioned the way he treats you. Is that type of thing still important? Do women still, is that a requirement?
Chivalry?
Yeah, chivalry, you know, to open
chivalry?
doors, things like that.
What
'Cause
about
a lot
that?
of people do believe chivalry is dead.
Yeah, Mike, what do you think about that?
I personally believe it's dying. I'm not going to say it's all the way dead. I think it's dying. I mean, the majority of the women that I've come in contact with like guys that are totally different from what they say they want down the road in terms of marriage. You know, you know the saying, good girls like bad guys. All these bad guys aren't opening doors and pulling out chairs and all that kind of stuff. I personally think that's just a lie. I think that's what they want, but that's not what they end up with.
But don't you think that you set your own personal standard, though, and so it doesn't matter what a young woman, because some young women don't know what they need, and so if they encounter a real man who can show her, this is who you are. You may not realize it yet, but me being in your life empowers you now to be a better woman. What do you think about that?
Well, it goes back to what was said earlier. How you treat somebody is a reflection of how you treat yourself. And everybody doesn't deserve the same respect. As a man, yes, I should respect women, but all women are not going to get the same respect from me. It depends on how you treat yourself, and that basically is going to let me know what you demand from me.
All right, well, thank you both for joining us today. You're going to be on part 2 of our relationship series talking about that big 3-letter word. But we want to thank you for joining us today and sharing with us. You know, it's important that we hear your perspective.
Thank you.
That's right. And coming up next, our relationship expert tells us some of the common mistakes that men and women make in relationships. Don't go anywhere. ATL Insider will be right back.